Our Fox panel is back to talk about it. Eric, I just got a note from a guy who was a currency trader. He was one of the biggest there is. He says, I would not be short the dollar at this historic level. That is, he wouldn't bet against the dollar now. All the short sellers are in already. You agree?
No, I think this is not a buying opportunity. It might even be a selling opportunity. I mean, I go out to dinner on Saturday night. The couple next to me is from Canada. They said they brought empty suitcases over here because they're going to load up because America's on sale. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. What they do is these strong euros, these strong Canadian dollars, these strong British pounds, they come over here, they buy U.S. goods. They deplete our inventories. They spend money in our stores. Our factories run. This is why Mike referenced the trade deficit. It's shrinking. It's shrinking because of that, because our dollar is weaker.
Wait a minute, you guys are actually agreeing on something?
You don't know, we became good buddies now. No more. We're gonna be good friends. Listen, when I see supermodels shorten the dollar, you know, I think it's pretty much over, okay? The only thing we got to see now is Britney Spears taking out a foreign exchange account and going short. Then it's going to be really time to go long the dollar. But look, I don't agree with what the former Treasury Secretary O'Neill said. You know, when you get into this jingoistic, the currency is a reflection of the health of the economy, that's nonsense. Look, Asian nations for decades have kept their currencies down just in order to promote exports and to stimulate their economies. There's no connection with that whatsoever.
I know somebody who's going to really throw some water on this fire. Peter Schiff. Peter.
Yeah, as somebody who's been getting out of the dollar successfully for 8 years, I can assure you it's a long way down, and this is not a good thing. Sure, it's a good thing for my clients' portfolios. It's not a good thing for them as Americans, and it's not a good thing for any American. You know, these Canadians.
No, one reason why.
Because when the dollar is losing value. When the dollar is losing value, Americans are getting poorer. The value of their wages is going down. When you're talking about these Canadians who are coming in and buying things, they're buying things that Americans can now not afford. You know, as the dollar loses value, things get more expensive for Americans. They get cheaper for everybody else. And, you know, when the dollar is really going to start to decline is when the Chinese finally allow their currency to rise. You know, the dollar is weakening because the Fed is creating inflation. When they create money, they diminish its value. And when the dollar loses value, prices rise. Prices for things like oil that are globally traded rise immediately.
Okay, but hold on a second, Peter. Let me give somebody else a chance to get in here. Nicole, there is good news on inflation today. Productivity has increased beyond expectations. That is, people make a lot of things quicker and cheaper than they used to. That keeps inflation low. So that might mean that, in fact, the Fed is on the right track, no?
Yes, I mean, yeah, because now employers, they're making more products, so they're selling more, and they can keep the prices lower.
Peter was against the Fed lowering rates because he said it would be inflation, but there are signs that inflation is in check.
Yeah, that was definitely a sign that inflation is in check, I believe.
Excuse me, productivity is way up, Peter. That's what I was talking about. Go ahead, finish your point, Nicole.
It's not way
Hold on, Peter. Finish your point, Nicole.
It is a sign that inflation is in check, and it's a very positive sign. And as far as the weak dollar goes, you know, a lot of the... You know, for the U.S. consumer buying imports, they might see a rise in cost that way, but a lot of producers are going to try to absorb that extra cost so that it's still affordable to the U.S. consumer.
Can I just sum this up? The dollar going down is not a precursor to our economy. What it says is growth outside the U.S. is stronger than growth in the U.S. Growth in the U.S. So we're still growing. It's just that China's growing faster, India's growing faster. Some of the other countries whose currencies are appreciating faster are growing faster.
There's no connection. You know, Peter talks about the dollar at an all-time low against the euro. Inflation, which is implied, let's say, in a Treasury inflation-protected security, a TIP, it's about under 2% right now. So the dollar has gone down since 2002, this whole period, 8 years that he's been getting out. Where's the inflation implied? Wouldn't you think that Treasury holders would want to get a higher rate of return? It's not in there.
Go ahead, Peter.
Mike, all the good news on inflation is coming from the government in these numbers. All the real-world examples of inflation, like the price of gold, the price of oil, the price of food, the price of agricultural commodities, the money supply growth, there is massive inflation here. And if you guys don't want to recognize it, you're going to do so at your own financial peril.
Mike,
the reason we're making so much money.
Hold on, guys.
Deflation and
Mike,
a lot of things that
everything
we consume.
is more expensive here. I don't care if it's a certain Leapster toy that I was buying my kid last year. Now it's more expensive this year. Milk.
But
everything's more expensive.
Well, we can go back to 1920 when it cost a nickel to go to the movie theater. I mean, you're making more money now, too. Inflation adjusted earnings now are the highest they've been in 27 years. So, I mean, everything goes up.
Isn't this the guy who's just telling me that oil was $10 a barrel a few years ago?
You could have bought a brand new car in 1965 for $3,500, a Mustang. Now it costs $20,000. Is that to say it's inflation?
No, but all I'm saying is that when the government comes out with numbers, we're hearing from people who are middle class saying, I'm just spending a lot more money on this stuff, and
but
my
they're
salary
making more
hasn't
money,
gotten
Liz.
better.
The thing is, the wage growth is also strong. So the more people are employed, they're making more money. They're able to spend. Good news is they're able to spend.
I have to disagree. One point. There was another statistic out. I know, Peter, you hate statistics from the government, but you'll like this one. Labor costs have fallen. Now, that's good news on inflation, but it's bad news for the people making money, right? Peter?
Well, look, I don't think there's any good news on inflation. There's a reason why we're making so much money in inflation hedges. It's because there's inflation. The reason the euro and the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar are going up so much, the reason commodities, gold and oil are going up is because there's inflation. This isn't a coincidence. This hasn't happened since the 1970s.
Okay.